Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing. I looked out the passenger side window of the van and all I see is just a motor and transmission sitting there. It didn't look like a car when they finally did move and got my dad rolled over. And I remember the doctor telling me, and he was jabbing me in the rib cage right here saying, you have a collapsed lung, we're gonna have to put a tube in right here. Next thing I knew, I woke up and I'm looking at my son, he's at the foot of my bed. He said, you look terrible. You look terrible. I said, you got to put that on Facebook to show people I'm alive. And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing. I looked out the passenger side window of the van and all I see is just a motor and transmission sitting there. It didn't look like a car when they finally did move and got my dad rolled over. And I remember the doctor telling me, and he was jabbing me in the rib cage right here saying, you have a collapsed lung, we're gonna have to put a tube in right here. Next thing I knew, I woke up and I'm looking at my son, he's at the foot of my bed. He said, you look terrible. You look terrible. I said, you got to put that on Facebook to show people I'm alive. And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing. I looked out the passenger side window of the van and all I see is just a motor and transmission sitting there. It didn't look like a car when they finally did move and got my dad rolled over. And I remember the doctor telling me, and he was jabbing me in the rib cage right here saying, you have a collapsed lung, we're gonna have to put a tube in right here. Next thing I knew, I woke up and I'm looking at my son, he's at the foot of my bed. He said, you look terrible. You look terrible. I said, you got to put that on Facebook to show people I'm alive. And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing. I looked out the passenger side window of the van and all I see is just a motor and transmission sitting there. It didn't look like a car when they finally did move and got my dad rolled over. And I remember the doctor telling me, and he was jabbing me in the rib cage right here saying, you have a collapsed lung, we're gonna have to put a tube in right here. Next thing I knew, I woke up and I'm looking at my son, he's at the foot of my bed. He said, you look terrible. You look terrible. I said, you got to put that on Facebook to show people I'm alive. And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing. I looked out the passenger side window of the van and all I see is just a motor and transmission sitting there. It didn't look like a car when they finally did move and got my dad rolled over. And I remember the doctor telling me, and he was jabbing me in the rib cage right here saying, you have a collapsed lung, we're gonna have to put a tube in right here. Next thing I knew, I woke up and I'm looking at my son, he's at the foot of my bed. He said, you look terrible. You look terrible. I said, you got to put that on Facebook to show people I'm alive. And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much memory of the whole thing.
All right. I think I gotta grab Aaron back here in a second. He disappeared again off my screen, but I'll fix that while we're. Aaron is definitely frozen. His screen is frozen.
I heard him talking, so I know he'll be back.
We can hear you. Yeah. But hold on. I'm gonna add him and bring him back on. All right, I'm gonna add him and bring him back here. Okay. It's always fun these first 5 minutes of getting this figured out, but that's what we'd have to do when we're all remote like this. But that's no problem. Let's see here. Let's do 250. All right, I'll take a look at it. I can hear you pretty well.
Technology, man. Oh, it's wonderful. I know.
Man, that's.
There you go. We can look at last thing I was looking at. Hasport.
Did Brandon's sound come back, guys?
Am I being heard yet?
Ghost?
Hasport.
Did Brandon's sound come back, guys?
Am I being heard yet?
And I tried to re-add our friend Aaron there, but I'm still not
yeah,
seeing
there we
video.
go. So Ariel said that she can hear me.
Excellent. Okay, got it.
Can you hear me?
Oh, is Aaron good, everybody?
Can anybody
Am I
hear
good?
the black box above me that we can't see any picture from for some reason? Apparently, like you said, the engine mounts they make are much better than their Wi-Fi that they have down there at Hasport. So we're looking to see if anybody can hear Aaron. It sucks if we can't get his video stream back up. Aaron, if you want,
Do you want me to
Oh yeah,
read
no, they
log
can
in?
hear you.
actually, yeah, go ahead and click back out and come back in. I'll re-add you one more time, so we can try to get your video channel back.
That
Sure.
usually works.
Yeah, go ahead and click back out and come back in. I'll re-add you one more time, so we can try to get your video channel back. Oof.
Got puff hair on my mouth.
I
When
looked
you
at
have a
myself.
corgi, it gets
I
everywhere.
looked at myself and I'm crap. I'm covered in hair.
When you have a corgi, it gets everywhere.
I looked at myself and I'm crap. I'm covered in hair.
No, U-Wrench Lives will be no longer for a little bit. No, U-Wrench Lives will be.
All right, I got Aaron back with video, so let me add him back in.
I see him. He looks
I see
wonderful.
him. He looks
Nice
absolutely
and shaved. Might have taken a shower today.
Yeah, that's what he was
Yeah, I
doing.
didn't even know I was going to be doing this when I shaved. So.
Might have taken a shower today.
Yeah, that's what he
Yeah,
was
I
doing.
didn't even know.
Let's see if this works.
So the happy little accident, like Bob Ross.
Perfect.
Still not picking.
You know, I found a hat yesterday or the other day. What's going on, Puff? Everybody can hear you. You know, I found a hat yesterday. I don't hear nothing. We're fine. What's going on, Puff?
All right, last try here to get Aaron in here all the way.
I don't hear nothing. We're fine.
Not that I won't keep trying.
On our
That's kinda-
podcast, on our live stream, we'd say just spit on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
No, every time I'm anywhere and the computer's going slow, I just tell whoever it is to punch it. No, every time I'm anywhere and
All right, let's see if that
Same
works.
thing with exiting a corner. Just go for it.
Oh yeah, that's
There
yeah.
we go. He's back.
Except that actually works.
Let the LSD pull you through.
Oh yeah, that's
There we go. He's back.
Except that actually works.
All right. And we got Aaron back on the screen there. Awesome.
Oh, perfect.
Oh,
I only see one of you guys, but
Yeah, no,
yeah, you will never
Robbie's
see me.
camera
I'm too cool to be
is
seen.
different. If you have like I have Robbie pulled up on the YouTube page somewhere else and he's muted, but
Yeah, essentially, since I'm the host, my camera can't be used in multiple places, so you don't get to see me on the background. All right, and I think I got everything locked, so nothing should move around. Okay, there we go. 5 minutes.
All right.
That's a record for us. 5 minutes to get everything figured out.
woo! Look at see I'm subscribed.
5 minutes.
perfect.
Okay, so originally we were going to have Brian Gillespie on here, but he let us know about an hour ago that he's not feeling so hot at all. So thankfully Aaron was able to join us instead. so we'd not have to scramble, and he can also fill in terms of talking about Hasport. So we wanted to bring Hasport on, and obviously he's affiliated and also does also in charge of VTEC Academy, if I'm not mistaken, right, or one of the primary creators.
One of the co-creators of VTEC Academy.
Yeah,
we started that.
We get an echo on Aaron or no?
I don't have an echo on him.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep.
This office is echoey, but
As long as it's not just hearing you twice, that's fine.
That's why I use the AirPods.
It's doubly beautiful that way. Tell us about, first off, what you do at Hasport.
For Hasport, I am the marketing. I forget what we ended up the title being. Marketing director, marketing manager, something like that. Basically managing the socials. When we are going to run an ad, I help design ads and stuff.
Like Google ads or Facebook ads or something like that?
Actual ads, like for we were gonna have Robbie's NSX in the ad for what was it, Super Lap Battle or?
Oh, okay. So you're working on the March stuff for next year already?
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know. It was something that I designed. It's actual print in a program.
Nice.
So.
That's
Well,
awesome.
that means I need to get together with you because we're starting to build all that stuff now. So we need to get talking about that. I know Brian said he was interested in being involved in that more this year, which is awesome because that event just keeps growing more and more. And then
it does.
what about VTEC Academy? So I mean, I've watched the channel for a while. It's been a good time. But for people who've never seen VTEC Academy, what is VTEC Academy?
VTEC Academy, we go before VTEC Academy. We had a channel called Nacho Speed Garage that we started like way back in like 2011, and it was me, Brian, and my other friend Sean. Me and Sean worked at Channel 3 up here in Phoenix.
Okay.
And I was a video editor, and he was a video editor, and we answered a post on AZHT.
Oh God.
.net.
Oh, wonderful AZHT.
Yeah, Brian was like, "Oh, does anybody want to do some car videos or whatever?" And we hooked up, and we went over here to the Denny's right down the street from the shop and met him for the first time. Well, met him in the capacity of working together. We had both met Brian when he was working at Honda Auto Salvage.
I remember rolling down to Honda Auto Salvage years ago. The loose affiliation for years confused me until Brian actually explained it.
Yeah. Basically, that was Keith's salvage yard just for Honda stuff, and Brian worked for him, and then Brian wanted to go racing, so he let him do that on the side as long as he kept doing the salvage stuff. And then Hasport blew up and was way more worth their time than the salvage yard.
That's wild because think about salvage yards these days. Like I had a customer come in today, or maybe it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday. He was looking for a idle air control valve for a B series with the widespread bore. Not the two bolts that are close to each other. The ones that are a little bit wider apart. I think they're on like the older B16s mostly.
Yeah, it's the OBD0.
Yeah, the OBD0 one. So I was like, I honestly, I sent him down to see you guys. I'm like, I don't know anybody who might actually have that in town. I really don't anymore. There's so imagine that junkyard existing now when B series is impossible to find.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, and imagine the prices now.
It would be like going to like King Motorsports or something.
Yeah, and it would be for a used part.
For a used part, though, yeah, and it wouldn't be a pretty shiny one. It'd be like, well, I've got this one. It's $600.
Well, yeah, because what was it, like 2011, 2012 was when you could buy a D series for like $50.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
or like a B series transmission, $100 for an LS, and now those are $600, and like ITRs are like $2,000.
What is it? Fred, my business partner, he bought 2 D series transmissions for $40 so that he could take them apart and learn how they work.
Back in the day, yeah,
That was it.
The B series stuff is absolutely wild, and I guess that brings me back to again Hasport. So he started going racing. So how did we get the first set of mounts? Do you know much about that side of it?
Well, from what I understand, they were Brian was spending a lot of time going back and forth. They were actually getting their mounts from a place, I think it was, I don't want to say the name in case I have it wrong, but they were getting their mounts from California for their swaps. And he would go back and forth and go to the yards in between and stuff and be pulling stuff. And the shop out in California that were making mounts couldn't supply Hasport with mounts either on time or in the quantities that they needed.
Uh-huh.
So Brian was like, well, why don't we just make our own? And Keith said yes, luckily, and that's how we got Hasport. And I know that the first set of mounts that Brian engineered were actually for a third generation Civic, first generation.
Oh, are we losing the Wi-Fi?
Good old Hasport Wi-Fi. Somebody didn't pay the internet bill again.
Right.
Oh, he lost.
Oh, no.
Dropped completely. Oh. Man.
Okay, well,
So
until
he
we
was
get
telling
him
me,
back.
yeah, he was telling me it was I think the first gen CRX specifically is what their first mount was. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. Because third gen would be EF chassis, and
Right.
first gen would be
Like the
CRX for
yeah.
that generation.
So, cause I remember, so in the late 2000s, I had a mount called the AZ Fab mount, which apparently was someone who actually had, I don't know if it's the word ripped, like they looked at it and they made a really nice mount. I had them for years. They actually fit the same. I always was curious. I never asked Brian about it, but they actually fit the same inserts and everything. So I was always, I want to ask Brian if he knows anything about that. Was that an ex-employee or what was that? But yeah, they came with my Integra actually. They were in the car when I bought them. It was a long time ago, but I hope we get them back. I'm not sure why how do they do business with Wi-Fi like that? Like that's gotta be rough.
Yeah, no, at 5 o'clock their Wi-Fi turns
it
off.
shuts off
like
because you're in Tucson and I'm upstairs in a little room with the router miles away.
Oh yeah, I'm in a rural part of actually outside of Tucson. Like I'm 45 minutes away from my shop.
So we went from talking about engine mounts to talking crap about Hasport's Wi-Fi. So
that's okay.
That's okay.
Because I mean, if there's anything that you can talk about or talk crap about Hasport, that's probably the only
their
thing
mounts.
that we
Their
have
mounts
anything.
are literally like I've been using their mount products forever, and like when we went to go to
Same.
the swap, there was no other option but to just have. I was like, Brian, I need mounts for a car that we don't have.
I don't know
mounts
how
for.
many times. I don't know how many times I've told people like they're like, oh, what mount should I run for this? I'm like, Hasport. There's
It's a Honda.
There's no reason to run anything. Hey,
welcome back.
well, so we were just talking about that Hasport mounts.
We have shitty Wi-Fi.
We already talked about that. We covered that for the last 25,
I
30
can
seconds.
hear you guys.
Oh, okay.
You guys couldn't hear me.
Oh, fair.
Us in here talking to nobody like an idiot.
Aaron,
actually,
go ahead.
I was going to say for the mount thing, how Brian actually cared to make good motor mounts and at a quantity that could supply the need. One of my favorite stories when people say another brand that's also popular for Hondas because they're cheaper than Hasports. It is black and red.
I was going to go there too.
So my favorite thing is people will say, no, go with these mounts, they're cheaper. And I was like, you won't believe the amount of calls Hasport gets because that other company won't answer the phone. Let alone not help them with the
when
mounts
their engine
not
fell
fitting
out of
correctly.
or when their engine fell out of their car,
Yeah. No, I had a set in a fit that I bought, and the transmission mount on that one, the insert, the red thing was just literally flexing out probably like 2, maybe 3 inches, and this was a stock fit.
Same. I had a stock S2000 that the same thing. One of them completely collapsed.
07.
Oh, 07s are torque monsters, man.
Dude, you can't handle that 1.5, 108 horsepower.
To the flywheel.
It was just one of those things I get it. People are like, oh, Hasports are expensive, but there's a reason. Like,
it's cheaper to buy them once.
It is cheaper to buy once. But that's never gonna hit. It's always. When we were young, we did the same crap. We were looking for cheaper alternatives, and I find that that's mostly what it is. And a lot of times they will pony up for the Hasport next time, and that sometimes actually is a good thing because then folks start to realize the value in these products and they stop cheaping out on them. Actually, it's a it's a weird phenomenon.
For me, it's
not just a baller part; it's an actual good
it's a good quality part. Yeah, just having a part that
and then you'll get customer support. You can call here up. Call up here, and a lot of times they help with not only people will call up and they'll want to buy our urethane for the other company's mounts.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yep.
But it won't fit, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But they'll call and they'll try to get, even if they don't have our mounts, they'll call and they'll get actual like help with their swap. They're like,
Yeah.
we'll work with this and this, and,
Like, you guys
and
actually
of
give
course
them the
we
time
help
of
them
day.
out because you know, eventually even if they have somebody else's mounts in there, when those
Yeah, they're
fail,
gonna
they
remember
will
what
fail.
you did.
They're going to remember that we helped them. The other company didn't pick up their phone, didn't answer their email, and then our mounts have a lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
So all they do is just the urethane will wear out eventually.
Well, and
Not
it's a
as
real
quickly as
lifetime warranty because they can call you and you'll help them.
Right.
Yes.
And you'll be around. You're not going to close in 2 years or 2 months because you're some fly-by-night company pumping out crap from China. I wanted to actually ask a question. Like, let's say you had a new application, like let's say the FK8, for instance. How long does it take to actually go from like an idea, concept to actually develop the mount to have it like on sale on average? Would you say like to develop a mount kit for a new application?
Oh man. Well, I mean, it definitely varies by application because like for the FK8, Brian had to go. He went and bought a FK8, I think, and
Fancy.
we put our most viewed videos were when Brian's like, all right, well, this is really cool. Now let's take everything out of this and really look at this engine outside of the car, even though
Right.
I remember that. You guys test fit it in a few different cars too. Once it was out, correct?
Yeah, they had an engine that traveled around. It sat in my shop for a while. That we were just throwing in different cars and seeing what it fit into. Does he still own that FK8?
No.
Oh, I need to borrow it. Damn it.
Yeah, I was pissed, dude. Everybody got to drive that car except for me around here.
Oh man.
He was.
You know what? It's because you beat him at Muscleman.
Ooh.
It was way before that.
Maybe he knew it was coming.
He knew I had such great acumen at learning how to drive, and that our last time that we were there with the hatches, that I really it was with my SI when it was on stock suspension. I took all those lessons to heart and then just wiped the floor with them. Stock K20.
We'll fill everybody in that in a little bit, but we're still on Hasport. So
yeah, Hasport, Hasport mounts.
Oh, sorry for development. So I don't remember the release date. I mean, they do have it kind of down to a science, especially with new applications with the ferro arm. Like they measure the points. They and a lot of the times we'll have access to technical data from Honda themselves. So like, if Brian has a question on something or how strong something needs to be, how much, rigidity needs to be in a certain part of the kit,
I didn't know it went to that length. I mean, I kind of assumed there was a lot more behind the scenes, but that's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, no, that brings up something that I also like telling people when I'm, boasting up Hasport is Hasport is the only mount kit that Honda sells in their performance cars.
Yeah, through HPD.
So if you buy an HPD like race car from Honda, it comes with Hasport mounts.
Yeah, if you get the full HPD package, the body in white and the engine and transmission and everything, it'll be the red mounts with the HPD white logos. I forget what they're called. The tampos, what they call them on Hot Wheels. But it'll be there, and then it'll say "by Hasport" a little bit there. And
That's
and people all the time always ask me, "Oh, can you give me those HPD mounts? Those are because you have to actually be part of Inside. Well, it used to be called Inside Line. I'm not sure if it's still called Inside Line right now, but the Honda's racing program, like you show them that you're actually racing and using these parts, and then you join
might have
the
changed
access.
when they changed that they weren't really taking care of older cars anymore. That was kind of a low blow from Honda, but
dude, that's one of those funny things about Hondas. Usually they keep stuff around for 12, 14 years on a lot of the popular stuff. The one that's obviously as an NSX fanatic, one of the ones that kills me is because they built those cars. They claimed they were good for 30 years. That's what they claimed when they released cars. It could be a car that's solid for 30 years. So
Seriously?
yes, it's
30 years.
published that they said it would last for 30 years, which is accurate. Mine's 32 years old, and I haven't replaced shit on it. Like I think I did a clutch at 200,000 miles and had the OEM one in there, and the spring just popped out. It wasn't like a massive failure or worn out or anything. And then I did a window regulator and a stereo. Those are the only parts I've ever replaced on that car at 250,000 miles, and everything else works, with the exception of I think the blow motor is going out. But what I was bringing up as a point was nothing had to be replaced for 30 years, and now that I need to replace stuff, it's all been discontinued. I can't replace any of the parts.
It's like they knew.
It lasted so long that now I'm SOL on everything because there's no aftermarket for it. Honda doesn't have it. You can kind of find it on Amayama every now and then, and then a little bit on eBay, but it's realistically like it really sucks that it lasted so long that no one cared to make parts for it. There's no market, and now Honda doesn't even support it. So
I mean,
you
you could look at it another way. You could own a Jeep.
I could own a Jeep and be able to buy a part literally at every Circle K on the planet.
I mean, need one before your first oil change too.
Or just replace that 3.7 liter right off the dealer lot there.
Oh my God! At least one of the cylinder heads is warranted for 150.
You were telling us last time. That's absolutely hilarious that they do that. Okay, so let's move on. Like I said, let's move on to VTEC Academy. So different scope.
Yeah. Well, our old channel was Nacho Speed Garage, and it was the three of us, and that had a couple videos that did all right, but it really never caught on. And then I think it was 2014 when they killed off Honda Tuning.
Oh man, I hated that. I always wanted to get
and I talked with Brian. I was like, "Good, we should start something to kind of help replace Honda Tuning," and because the forums were dead because of social media, and let's make something there where people can go find the information that they need about Hondas, that we love to work on and race and modify and just drive everywhere.
And it's not just, oh, look, we put a B series in. Like, I know Brian will actually put, like, this is how you wire this thing.
Right.
This is how...
The how-tos are great.
You guys get into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of our specialty, is the kind of technical aspect of actually getting these things to work. And so we're just really leaned into it. Like, we want to do more like racing and track stuff too. But yeah, especially because nobody's explaining stuff to, if I was at home, I would either be stuck, like for a K20 swap, I would have to either luck out and find RSX Type S harness, buy one new for like $750, or buy one from, Rywire, or how was it? I don't even know the companies that make it. JB2.
Yeah, for like $1,000 or $1,200.
Yeah, and it costs a grip, and then it kind of takes the, it kills your budget.
Yeah, and I mean most Honda people, or the kids that are getting into Hondas, as we were talking earlier, aren't the richest people. So
it's always
if they
been
can
an
save
economy
money on
entry
certain
level point,
things by doing it themselves.
It's always been
absolutely.
an economy point. So having those options available is great, and what Hasport does, or not Hasport, VTEC Academy does, making all these how-tos and videos that cover fairly normal things that we want to do. We broke it. Matt says we broke.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that.
He's not wrong. We broke. All of us, every one of us.
Well,
Never's gonna stop.
What was it? Actually, I don't know if Brian told you about this, Aaron, but so I was doing a K swap down here, and I was dealing with a problem where I got a K Pro in an automatic transmission ECU. And so the VSS or CSS, because I also put in an 06 Civic Si, which is another thing, and I know Brian covers how to do that, and I followed his video, and I was like, bro, this ain't working. What's going on with this? And so after probably like a week or two of me sitting there and like looking over everything and looking at diagrams, like, am I an idiot? Why is this not working? I finally reached out to Brian, and I was like, hey, dude, this isn't working. What am I screwing up? Please tell me I'm stupid. And then he found, or he asked me, he was like, like what the code was on there, and I told him what it was, and he was like, I'm pretty sure that's an automatic ECU, and Honda, and this was really weird too. It was kind of like fortuitous, but he said yesterday I was talking with Honda about this problem and using the little red wire out of the extra thing on in the ECU. It's like the extra wiring thing under there. Using that and running the VSS or CSS to that, and then being able to get it to work. And I got it to work, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing."
That's one of those things that he's notorious for.
Like,
you just ask him a question, he's got some answer that pushes us in the right direction, man. Every time.
No, there's been one time where I called Brian, and it was also another odd thing where we were both in the same position at the same time. I called him and I was like, "Hey, I'm having this issue, and I replaced a cam gear, and now the car won't start or won't stay idling." And he was like, "Yeah, I just did the same thing on one of the EGs we have. I'll let you know what I figure out." And I was like, "All right, cool." And
Oh no! Did it just drop again?
No, you know.
no, I have
there.
you, Aaron.
Or
Oh, maybe you did.
maybe how did he knew that ahead of time?
Yeah, I don't know. That
was weird. I heard him too, and he's like, "Oh no, oh there
Yeah,
he
he was like, "Oh no, I lose him."
Oh man, we're gonna have to when we have Brian on, we'll make sure he's not at the shop.
Yeah, Brian, go home first.
Brian, go home first. We'll wait for you because we really want to get good video with him.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if he pops back in again or not. Hopefully he's able.
But yeah,
to jump back
essentially, I was just talking like, not only does Brian help me, and I know he's helped you, Robbie, because Brian had a big hand in your NSX too.
It wouldn't have happened without him. I think a lot of people know that entire swap was a drunken escapade of tacos and beer, and it never would have happened. I'd never considered doing it. I was diehard C series. I was going to turbocharge it with an SOS kit or a supercharge it. That was the way to go. I didn't really have a fan of I'm not a huge fan of the regular K series NSXs that people swap into because it's so much money, and there's so many limitations.
I mean, they have to be turboed essentially to make more
so
power.
You figure I think I'm about let's take out a couple factors. Let's take out that we are sponsored by Full Race, so let's call it full retail for Full Race, and let's take out the fact that Hasport developed a mounts with us. So let's put a full retail price on that. And I paid for the Motec, and I paid for the engine all up front. They weren't special deals or anything. So I think all in, I was about $20K for the entire swap, if I paid full price for everything. So and that's for something that's 500 horsepower capable right off the box. And I didn't have to buy the turbo. Could have ran a stock turbo. Could have ran a stock downpipe. Could have done a lot of things stock. Could have ran what's it called?
But you're fancy.
I am fancy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, even stock, that engine's still good for like 400-ish.
500 is easy, dude, easily.
Stock?
Stock. It's fueling.
Oh,
They
yeah.
need fuel. If you can get the fuel to them, it's fine. So
I know the 1.5s are nuts. I didn't know the
20Cs are gnarly. Like, people are getting crazy numbers, way past where I want to go with it. So but I was saying though is Brian helped us. He just was like, well, why not a K20C? And I was in my head. I'm like, well, I actually don't have a reason why not, because the gearbox isn't made of glass like the original K series. It's already turbocharged. The turbocharger's on the correct side for my car, because that was one of the big holdups I had with the K series NSXs. Is you have to either do a sidewinder mount, which puts it off to the side, or you have to kind of cut into the back of the trunk area, which isn't really the issue of cutting into the trunk. It's for a race car. That wasn't the issue. It's just accessibility. If it's in the trunk, I don't want stuff buried in the car where I have to take the wing off to get to it, for instance.
Yeah.
So obviously the K20C, that's all flip-flopped, and the package is much narrower. It sits in a much more compacted space. I actually like that it's got a single exhaust port manifold. People hate on those things, and I'm like, dude, I have no manifold flanges to break. It just turbos right on there. It takes me like 10 minutes to remove the turbo. 10 minutes.
Honda's been using it since like the early 2000s in their race cars.
Right. It takes me 10 minutes to pop the V-band off and 2 oil lines and 2 coolant lines, and I can flap it right on top of the engine. And then remember, now I can drop the engine in about 25-30 minutes if you have a lift. On the ground, we drop the engine in 2 hours with hand tools and a jack.
Not bad.
So like that's unheard of with the regular K series, because most of the kits use some sort of underbrace that goes from front to back that's in the way. It's just more complex. And then you you're going to spend 20 grand just on getting it to fit in there, like with the engine and all that crap, and then you still have to buy the turbo kit. You still have to build the block potentially. You got fuel man. The numbers. There's a guy named Jonathan online who does a lot of K-Series NSXs, and I follow him, and he says the most inexpensive K-Series NSX is typically right around 24 grand. So I'm lots ahead of that number by a large
well
margin.
Under.
Yeah, and then also.
And I mean, so we do have some people saying, like K-Series are overdone, and you can say
Paul.
that, but it's
Paul doesn't want to put a K-Series in his S2000 ever, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing too. It's like people saying LSs are overdone. like it's a good engine.
It is.
That's why people do it, and it does, and it I agree. You going your route with the K20C is definitely a lot better than a regular K series, because you have to do so much more to a regular K series to make it anywhere close to the one that you put in.
Right.
And then I see someone else said something about like a J35.
So we weighed out. I don't have a J35 weight on that, Jim, but what we did weigh out was we weighed out my complete assembly with intercooler and turbo and everything, compared it to the C series, which remember is a much bigger engine, but it doesn't have as much accessories. And it ended up being, I think, within 20 pounds. It wasn't that much difference. The weight was surprisingly close, but again, you're factoring in, I've got a lot of intercooler piping now. I have a heavy air-to-water intercooler. I have a heat exchanger up front, and I've got hoses going front to back. So
the other thing, too, is a J35, for you to make 400 horsepower,
right. You can do it.
Would have been much more, and it wouldn't have been as reliable as
the reliability was the key factor for me, because the J series notoriously have small rod ends. The rod ends are tiny. They snap. They go through the roof. You can put forged rods. You can do whatever you want. They still eventually break. Now, over at Tony's, I've seen lots of 500-600 horsepower J's. It's totally able to be done, but you have to build the block, which means if I want to bring a spare block with me, now I got to build that block too to make sure it can handle everything. Whereas if anything happens to ours, I've checked. Since we go to Super Lap every year, I've checked. In the Austin junkyards, there are almost always 2.0 Ts ready to go.
Yeah, let's go find a wrecked Accord.
Right, exactly. So we grab that engine. They're like $2,000 for the engine, and again, it's a $2,000 engine that's ready to roll. That can do 400 or 500 horsepower out of the box, no complaints. And since we made everything modular, it's just easier. Like getting any kind of J or C series out in any kind of racing condition is basically impossible. It's not something you would do with the racetrack.
A big perk over any K series versus a J series is timing chain.
Right, timing chain, no belts to deal with. Although I will point out that most of the FK8 guys will complain about this, and I will as well, is that their timing covers and their valve covers leak, and no one has really completely fixed that yet. I've had mine once off and resealed it, and it's still leaking. And
ultra flange.
I'm using the freaking ultra gray, dude, like the rigid stuff and the right stuff. That's what it's called. Because the Honda.
Oh no! So actually, I remember years ago, me and a friend. Sorry, just a little side thing. But me and a friend were arguing, and I was telling him Honda Bond poops on everything.
That's right. I used to always think that. Did he think he lost it? Did we lose him again?
Yeah. Okay, next time he comes back, we're just gonna let him talk.
Right, we need to.
But I was telling him, I was like, dude, Honda Bond is so much better than the right stuff. And he was like, no, the right stuff is amazing. And then he actually sent me a YouTube video where someone did like tests, and they had a whole, but it wasn't just Honda Bond and right stuff. It was literally every one of them. And Honda Bond, actually, let me see if I can find it. But Honda Bond was far superior than any other one, and right stuff wasn't even second place.
I believe it.
And actually, if you don't know this, but there's another one that Honda sells, and it's called Ultra Flange.
I haven't seen
Ultra Flange. I've actually bent a breaker bar on trying to get something off with.
I don't know if I want that on my timing cover, Brandon.
I'm just saying it won't leak. But
it won't leak.
So this was the
mess up his cover.
Yeah, why are you trying to mess up my
this
engine,
was
Brandon?
actually the thing. So
that's the actual
it's kind of hard to say.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's tensile strength of the Bond, and Honda Bond is way over here.
Yeah.
Actually, second place is Mopar's.
Really?
I wouldn't have guessed that.
That's
I would have thought Toyota was second. Right? I would have thought the Toyota Black RTV would have been second place, but it's really close. And then down here in sixth place is Permatex right stuff at 59.9, and Honda Bond is over here at
93.9 pounds.
Wow.
And I will tell you, Ultra Flames is stronger.
That's nuts. To answer Jim mentioned that, they have some drag racers doing 7 cents. And I'm not debating that the J Series can't be made to do amazing things. That's not the debate. The question is whether or not I can do a full season or two boosted in the back of an NSX and then rely on it. And then if it goes bad, what do I do? The problem with the J is I can't get it out. There's no way to get it out at the track. You have to have a lift. Even the regular K Series, generally speaking, you kind of have to have a lift because of how the engine sits and how it leans in a particular direction. You've got all this turbo crap on the back. Like when we were at Super Lap and the clutch failed, first off we were like, putting the towel in, we're done. We can't pull an engine here. There's no way. And then we realized it was the second. We just finished the second session of the day, so we had all of today and all of the next day to figure this out. So I figured, well, crap, we got to pull it out at home anyways. We might as well just do something with our time now. And we were shocked that, like, within an hour, it was basically hanging on and ready for us to stick a jack under it and lower down. Then we had it down on the ground in another 45 minutes or so. And then we had it going back into the car by 6 o'clock that evening. We didn't even stay late. We left and said, we're just going to finish this in the morning.
That's awesome.
And then we had it running. I think it was back running by 9 or 10 o'clock. It was ready to go back on track. And then that session that was right before mine, somebody blew oil down, and we lost like 2 hours. So we basically missed that session. So that's why we only got 7 laps after that. But it was the proof of concept was, and that's what we thought, was that we built this thing to just slip out the bottom very easily, unlike the J, unlike the C, and unlike the regular K.
Yeah,
and Aaron,
I will
we need
say,
to get you on before you disconnect again.
Yes. Last thing I want to say is just real quick. Him saying the J Series can run, 7.7 seconds in the quarter mile, right? I always put an argument, like this is kind of my end to all that argument, is how much ever money someone has is how reliable or how often they can go out. Because the 787B was a performing race car that did well, but not many people have as much money as Mazda.
Right. That's right. That is what it is. Like, you're right. The money dictates how much. Like, for me, my dictation is that the C Series, like I threw up in the comments, the C Series, I can sell that for 25 to 30 grand right now, any day of the week. Which also means to buy one complete, I need about 25 to 30 grand, double what I have invested in this swap. And the swap engine on mine is 2 to 3 grand.
Cost versus reliability.
And then on top of that,
then it starts to.
We're talking about a 30-year-old engine that makes barely 300 horsepower and makes 100 pounds less torque than my engine did stock. So like per dollar, it just doesn't add up. It didn't make sense. For the last 7 years, I've been very nervous about that engine popping on me, and I haven't take off many years to pay for it, because then now I can't even sell it. Right now, it's just sitting downstairs, collecting dust. Unfortunately, I need to do something with it. Anybody want to buy a C Series?
Yeah. So back to VTEC Academy. VTEC Academy, as we were talking about, has helped us, and I'm sure many other people, with all of the stuff that you do. And I did want to bring in, we do talk about tracking and stuff like that, and I've actually had the pleasure of driving and helping you guys out with some of your cars. How was that? Like, was I a good teacher?
Yeah, I think so, because were you there when we had the hatches out too?
No, I didn't make it for the hatches.
Just when we brought the so then the first time that I met you out there was when we brought the CRZ and my SI, and I think there was one more car that we brought out, but
there was. I didn't drive it though. I think it was Carter's.
Which one's Carter's? It's got a lot of stuff.
I think he brought his Integra.
Okay, the Integra.
The DA.
Yeah,
he brought his white DA. I only drove the CRZ, and I rode and drove with you.
Yeah. You drove with me. Yeah, my times were horrible. And then but then you rode along with me. Well, yeah, you rode along with me, kind of like, you were coaching me, and things started to make sense. And then we swapped seats, and you drove, and I was about ready to crap my pants. I was like, no, what is he doing? He's no way he's gonna make this corner and go right through. So, that's when, partially the little light bulb went off in my head. It's like, oh, I can actually push this a lot harder than I was. And now I think if we redid the track battle of the hatchbacks, well, not now because Brian has an even better, stronger hatchback, but my V series versus his K series, it would have been a lot closer with, from the time that I spent on the track with you. And then this last time we did the Falcon Tires Super Saloon Shootout.
Yes, that was a blast.
So
Which I don't think we have a video here, but if you go over to the VTEC Academy cage and you look, it's the Falcon Tires Super Saloon Shootout, right?
Yeah.
So
it was a great video. It was real fun.
When we have you back and like Brian back, we talked about this ahead of time, but we need to get some videos sent over so I can get stuff queued up for us to show these folks some of the stuff we're talking about, because there's some really cool stuff. We're not quite coordinated enough yet, apparently, to manage said things.
I could have sent you over something, but I didn't know I was doing this.
It wasn't happening tonight, but that's okay. We'll definitely want to work on this for the future, for like bring on some of the VTEC Academy material to show these folks as well, some of the Hasport stuff.
One of the guys said tell them the Sunday driving story. So way back when I was doing downloads for some of the little time trials that they were doing at Musselman, I was in my group. I went out and I drove, and I was behind this one guy, and we got back to the download and we were talking. I was like, all right, anybody had any problems? Whatever happened, we got the talking done. And I was like, okay, I have one question. What happened? You losing again? No.
How does he know before it happens?
I don't know.
How do
he might see some sort of lag or something showing
that last like no.
It is kind of priceless.
It is.
I in front of the whole group, I brought this guy up and I was like, hey, I just had a quick question. He was like, what? And I was like, what's with the Sunday driving? And he was like, what? And I was like, you're going out there and you're like, you're not doing, you're just cruising. Like, you're barely going any, like, you're doing what speeds I would expect me driving home to be like. And apparently, me saying that, he went out the next lap or the next session and picked up 4 seconds from his best time, because he was angry that I called him a Sunday driver when he was out there trying to race. And when he came back in, he was so happy that I called him out. He was like, I didn't know I could do it. And I was like, good, get that little fire under you, go. And that's what Aaron, like, you had, I remember you were very cautious. And then when I showed you what your car could do, it kind of just like, ooh.
Seeing is believing. Yeah. Aaron, I got to ask you, what are you seeing right before you disconnect? Because we get about 3 seconds of you going, no, and then this freezes up and disappears. So how do you know before it happens? Because it's coming through the feed.
Because your audio stops.
Oh.
and then it kicks off you, and then it kicks off Brandon, and then it's just sitting on me, and then I'm hitting reload on the...
It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
now you see why our live streams here were such garbage.
Well, like I said, we're gonna work on Brian, one of our first guests. He's actually a good friend of mine. He technically works for us. We just don't utilize him too much.
Young?
But Brian Young. We're gonna have him bring his mix box over. So we can actually have 2 or 3 people here, all with balanced mics, then we can alleviate
that would be good for some of you Phoenix peeps.
Right, I was hoping that then I could make it full screen, then put you guys in squares around the full screen. Might make it easier.
Dude, we could just come right over.
Exactly, a lot of you guys are so close that like this isn't technically necessary. We just do it because it's easy and quick. But that's the next step for us on the live stream. Crap. Oh, before we forget about the other topic completely, Brandon, we wanted to chat about like where are cars going, like with the modding of cars, EPA, like. What do you where do you see it going? Like for me, obviously some people are going electric, but I really don't see electric. I mean, it's got the performance there. I just don't see it taking over mainstream for a long time yet. It's just not, the infrastructure is not there.
Yeah, I see electric being more costly. It's just not going to be effective. And then it's the other thing too, where the more aggressively you drive an electric, and then it's going to take 8 or the rest of the night for 8 hours or the rest of the night to charge it back up to get however long you actually get.
And I'm not so much just concerned about range either. I'm more concerned about like like just like if you go to
Being
the
able to race our cars.
say what?
Being able to race our cars.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a super replacement for automotive or sports like that. There's Mr. Perry there said is like it takes a long time to recharge. Finding a place that does quick charging, not having it at every supermarket. It's like I've been toying around the idea of grabbing one to replace my Subaru. Honestly, just get one of those like Nissan, not the Leaf, excuse me. I actually wanted the Chevy Bolt.
Bolt.
Yeah, the Bolt with a B. It's
Oh,
got like
okay.
a 180-mile range. It's really small, but it's pretty cheap. It's like 13 grand used for one that's 2 or 3 years old. Right, and I could do that back and forth to work. I only drive 10 miles. That'd be like 2 weeks of fuel for me on one charge per se. So that's convenient, but I'm probably not going to get rid of the NSX ever because I could drive that back and forth across the country, getting 35 miles to the gallon easily. Yeah, like Matt says,
Well,
the power grids can't take it. There's no way, and the craziness of telling people that they won't be able to sell gasoline vehicles in California, but yeah, we can't charge them at all. That's going to be 2035 is going to be absolutely wild.
It's going to be weird. Like the one thing that I didn't like about the EPA saying that we can't modify cars was like years ago I heard Jay Leno say it, and he was saying that like this was back when they were doing the Honda Clarity,
right.
the actual
The
like
FCX.
hydrogen one,
fuel cell
not just an electric one.
Electric.
And he was saying that it like that kind of thing would be able to put the gas burning cars as like what horses are now, which is just something you go in and enjoy.
Right, recreational
where
vehicle.
what the car did for the horse was now horses weren't beaten until they were dead because they needed to haul whatever business needed to
We're
move
speaking to
right
everyone
away.
who owns a Nissan Altima out there. Beating those things into the ground.
Oh my gosh! When you see those in your rearview mirror,
Oh my God,
you're coming to a stop. You're like, oh my God, please! I hope you don't hit me.
Yeah.
Them or a Saturn. Those people have nothing to lose.
Well, I
like
mean,
Jim
it's a $3 car.
Like Jim said, like I agree. Like performance-wise, if you've only got to go 7 or 8 miles for like Pikes Peak, for instance, dude, those electric cars are absolutely phenomenal. There's no doubt
It's
the
the same
performance
thing
is
like
there.
going from an indoor gas cart to an indoor electric cart. Like the gas cart's slow as shit. You can't get out of a corner. There's no torque. The electrics are definitely much stronger when it comes to the quick thing, but it's one of those things. Like I think it's either too rushed to be worth it, or it just might never actually work out the way that they want it to.
The one I've been watching very closely is in Australia about 2 years ago they announced aluminum ion batteries were being researched and developed, and that one is the one I'm really interested in because you have a much less toxic material to work with, obviously, just straight up in general. It's much more energy dense, and it's something about the way it charges heat control is a lot better. Like thermal runaway was going to be much less of an issue. So I've been really wanting to see. I've been waiting for the last couple of years to see that pop up that somebody had a development and is actually trying to put one into production. So I'm sure that like battery technology will keep developing. I just don't know if it's developing at a rate that will actually even come close to replacing gas cars in the next couple of years.
The big question here is it going to be like the Chevy 350 that they converted to run on diesel in the 60s when they were trying to bring diesel to America?
Sure.
And then it's taken 50 years for America to be like, oh, diesels aren't that bad. But it put this bad taste in their mouth because they just wanted to rush to it instead of actually make something that worked.
Right.
I don't know.
And then the second part of it is like we talked about the EPA cracking down on a lot of stuff. Obviously, a lot of this has been generated around the diesel community. Funny as you mentioned them, like the rolling coal thing. Like that's a very obvious way to attract a lot of attention to modifying cars, especially fuel systems and fuel controls, which is something
especially the kids that were just putting socks over the air filters
right.
to restrict air so that they just put more soot out of the truck.
And so we were talking about
why.
A very small percentage of enthusiasts modify their fuel systems compared to the amount of people who are out there in general, right? But the amount of people who mess with their diesels is actually quite high. And
it's staggering, especially with all the diesel tunes that they can just buy off
yeah,
the internet.
it's
like
not. It's much different than a fuel-injected vehicle like we're dealing with in terms of a gasoline fuel-injected vehicle. Diesel's much more forgiving. So yeah, you can buy a tune online, roll coal, get 150 extra horsepower, 300 extra pounds of torque, and it costs you $300. So everyone does it. And
well, it's like gasoline, weekend warrior racers, like how us three are. We go out there and we enjoy our cars and we do what we can.
right.
90% of those weekend warrior race car drivers, or even just weekend DE people, they stick with stock because of how reliable it is and
Right.
how easy it is to maintain. So they're only modifying, suspension. Like my CRX, it had a stock engine. I'm getting a different stock engine soon to put in it just because. What? It's gonna be a K24A2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
Not stock for the car. The engine's gonna be stock.
I'm putting a D15 back in. We're bringing it back.
I
found 30
I'm
grand.
gonna
I
go
want to piss
carburetor.
away.
That's so much better.
I was like, who is this guy?
Get him off the channel. This is crap.
The K20A3 was stock for the 3 years that I did Honda Challenge H2, and literally I would turn it on, and a lot of times I would just warm it up on track.
Right.
It was fine.
And as I said, my car, the pink car, a lot of people don't actually pass emissions with the K20C in it because it's on the rollers. So my question is
yeah.
I've got an aftermarket ECU in this car. I've got aftermarket turbo. I've got all these aftermarket things that aren't, EPA approved, and then it rolls fine on the dyno, and it sniffs just fine. Why? It's because a 2018 engine has to pass emissions for a 1991 V6. But does that mean, doesn't that just seem just wild to think about that I'm technically, my car is technically not up to standards based on what it's equipped with, but it's cleaner than it was from the factory right now.
Well, I wonder though if you could actually bar that. In California, they have it's a process where you can get your swap through and approved. Yeah. So
I don't think we have that here yet.
A lot of people have done that in California
we're
with
a lot calmer.
Yes.
With B series, where you show them that it has this computer, it has a little charcoal canister, everything, all the lines are hooked up, and you get a sticker that says, yes, this is carb legal. You can go through emissions. They'll do the test, and barring anything that you see differently from stock or from whatever the approved setup was when you got it barred, then you're gonna pass. You'll just do regular emissions tests, and you'll pass just like a normal car.
Yeah, like Matt said, I have an aftermarket ECU that probably pushed me out automatically.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
if they wouldn't
check your ECU. But the thing is, they wouldn't be checking your ECU on. It's a 91.
Right. So it's just too old. They can't scan it or anything. So they don't.
91 would be on the rollers anyway.
Yeah, if it was a 96, it would have to a JDM B series would just be a 96 JDM.
But that's
ECU.
my point. Is if let's say you had a 96 Integra and you threw a K20C in it that's cleaner in all respects than the engine that it came with, but if you can't connect to it.
Yeah, it still won't. It'll still say no, which is weird. And a funny thing about that, I don't know. You guys probably remember my MR2 that I had.
Yeah.
So it was catless 3-inch to a muffler. That was it, right? I went through the rollers the first time, and I was like, well, let's just see what happens. And the dude running it, and the dude running me, and the manager of the store were looking over my car because you can't get your head in there to say there isn't a cat.
Right.
It's so tucked up in the front that they couldn't, with a mirror crawling underneath it, flashlight, they couldn't actually see that there wasn't a cat because there was a big area they couldn't see. And they were like, well, just run it. And I passed emissions without a cat on a 92 turbo car. All stock.
So we're gonna have to move on next one because I just looked down. It's already 6:54. I'm actually going to Podium Club tomorrow for NS Expo. If anybody gets bored in the Phoenix area, you can go down to Casagrande and come check out a bunch of NSXs. We'll be down there driving tomorrow.
I think we're gonna come out there.
Yeah, you
I
should
think
make an excuse to get some pictures for your media.
I will.
Well, I
I'll
think
be bringing
Brian
the
wants
camera and
to.
everything. I probably need to go
But,
charge it actually. Now that I mentioned that.
Yeah, before
But
you leave, plug it in.
yeah, so we're going down to Podium Club, which we just had the first NASA event down there, which a lot of folks who are, if you're into tracking or like racing, on Podium Club's down in Casa Grande, and it's a 2.3, I think, or 2.23 or something like that. It's a 2.2-ish mile road course that's extremely safe, extremely wide. And Brandon, I don't remember. I don't know if you've ever been to like VIR and places like that where they have really big run groups, but we were running 45-person run groups without a problem. In HPD,
That is awesome.
it was absolutely insane. Like I was leading out the front cars half the time, and I would catch the people still getting on the track, like with 4 or 5 of them were still getting on the track while I'm starting my first flyer, and the track's so wide I just drove right around them and kept going. Like it's
perfect.
absolutely insane. We don't have a single track in Arizona that we can do that in, so I'm really excited to go back there.
so I would be safe.
Yes.
It's very. I mean, there were some incidents, but none of them were caused by the track or the walls or anything. It was just driver error that happens. It's part of being on a racetrack. But I was just gonna say it's such an incredible track. I grabbed, if you want to watch, I did queue up a time attack lap from last weekend. If you want to check that out real quick.
Yeah. Also, Aaron, have you been anywhere other than Musselman?
Ooh.
I did one HPD.
Oh, you did the Las Vegas thing, right?
Oh yeah, I did the one at Las Vegas driving the new NSX, NC1 NSX.
Nice. They're fun.
And at Fontana I drove the GTR, but it was out at Exotics Racing, so it wasn't on the road course there at Fontana, but it was
the road course.
where they had.
But you're talking about it was like off to the side where like they have
like
the autocross area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the one in Vegas had actually a dedicated track for, it's called Exotics Racing, and they actually had a dedicated track set up there. It's not
so you need to take out your car to at least Podium Club.
So
I know Robbie says that it rivals Indy.
Oh, I don't plan on ever going to Indy again.
Okay, fair.
So as somebody mentioned, it's exciting, but if only more elevation. The cool thing about the elevation, so the elevation at this track was designed a very specific amount to make sure that if you have a car that spins on the backside of a blind crest, it's visible from before you crest. And it worked. We had a guy spin down the S's, and coming up the crest, just as you get to the top, you could see the car at the bottom, and you could slow down safely without hitting any brakes and just go right around him. It was beautiful.
Because I will say, Indy has some fun crests.
It does, but they're all really dangerous.
You can't see anything.
Yeah.
And there's what is it? There's turn 14.
14
Phantom, I think they call it.
Yeah, Phantom is sketch.
So many people go off there because as soon as you crest, the corner's already to the right.
Light, you're gone. Yeah, it's a really fun factor. I always like to point out. Everybody's asked why didn't they make the elevation more than it is? Yeah, and it was designed very specifically for motorcycles to be motorcycle friendly and also be automotive friendly for that exact reason. We had several people spin down the S's.
Not sure what you're watching in the background, Era.
Oh my gosh! Look at that commercials on that.
Like someone peeing, and I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
I'm gonna cue this up real quick, and you guys can enjoy this lap from last weekend.
Let's check out this.
And then I'll be able
Robbie,
to grab
if
more
you
for
can
next
walk us
weekend.
through it.
I will try. I'm gonna try to turn the volume down on it. So yeah, this is the pit lane. So this is a couple time attack laps. So there's the actual competition itself. And so
How long is this course?
it's about 2.2 so as you're entering the track, right side, clockwise, nice blend line. Try that. Can you hear me now, Mr. Mad Mage? Since we can't for whatever hear. Can you guys hear okay now? We have no reference of how loud it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't hear it.
Yeah, Okay, cool. Now you guys can hear. Awesome. So like this is just a quick warm-up lap, and as you can see, it's all really high amounts of runoff on pea gravel and a couple areas. You can see where people have found the pea gravel, but most of it's.
Someone said they can't hear the narration now.
No, they can now. I just had to kill the video down. So this is the back straightaway. This is a straightaway that I can hit about 115, 118 on, followed by a 90-mile-an-hour entry, 80-mile-an-hour low speed, accelerates back up to 110 plus. So this is the blind corner I was talking about. So this one's a blind crest, but watch the car in front of me. He'll disappear just briefly, but not enough to. I can still see him, even though I was before the crest still. So that was designed so if somebody spins, you can see him. And these are pretty fast S's once we get moving. So this is just that first initial warm-up lap. So Tom Stober in front of me, that's a V8 swapped E36. It only weighs about 200 pounds more than me. He makes about 100 horsey more than me, and a little less torque, I believe, actually. But it's a fun little competition between me and him. We're usually within a tenth. He beat me by, I think, 0.3 of a second this time, but he's in a different class. So then this is always good. Yeah, this is the hairpin at the very end of the track. This goes up to 75 foot wide here. It's really wide. See, look how wide that thing is. So if you lose it a little bit, you're not even going off track. Then you start hustling down the straightaway here.
Oh, and the pit entry is early there,
pit entry is way back there. It's a massively long pick. I think the data logger said I hit 138 or so. Now there's the data showing. So yeah, 138, 139 breakdown. We're trying to have like a mid-70s entry or mid-corner, so a little bit low here, but not bad. Then a really hard acceleration up. Like it's a very fast average speed track. Again, tight left-hand turn. It's a little bit off camera. So
you were doing 141?
I hit 138 or 139 on low boost there. We're still on very low boost. We're only running about 320
well, I mean, on a
horsepower.
2.2, 2.3 mile track.
Oh, believe me, I wish I had the extra 100 horsepower to catch him. Again, here's another blind crest, but if you look closely, you'll still keep him in your view the entire time. That's a pretty good little blind crest here. Again, another fast entry down to the back straightaway. And you can just really stretch your legs. Again, this is a stockish power K20C at this point, since I still can't run more boost. But yeah,
I mean, people complaining about elevation. At least this isn't like east.
No, and then this video doesn't really do it justice. It's quite a bit more. But see, he's down the S's already, and I can still see him. Just the top of it. Yeah. It was so well engineered, considering how low my car is. Like I had no qualms. But yeah, you fly through these S's at pretty high speeds.
Well, yeah, it's like watching videos on Laguna. It was really funny. Being there, you feel all the bumps, and going into the corkscrew, you see all of it, and then like I watched video, and it looked like the video games where you don't get that sense.
Yeah. So the average, like most folks around here, doing about a minute 50 is about the normal lap time, and like if you a lot of the guys, like we've been here a couple times, so we were able to get into the low 40s, and there's even quite a few people who got into the mid to low 30s, some of the faster cars in Super Touring. So yeah, it's a really cool little track. Like I said, I'm going back down there tomorrow. Hence, I gotta get out of here somewhat on time because I gotta go pack my entire store and do this again. But yeah, so like we did a second lap, and I catch Tom up here drifting a little bit. He started his second lap was not as good as his first. Neither was mine.
He's getting a little hot.
Yeah, I had a good delta on the screen there, but I wasn't able to keep it. I'm not sure where I actually left off, unfortunately. But yeah, I think like a little bit right there. I lost a little bit of speed coming around that corner. And it's a fun track, but we're gonna go back. I think twice next year is the goal. Probably once in like April, once in November. So I hope a lot of people who want to go out check it out, especially with NASA. I mean,
it definitely seemed like it with how many people showed up. I hope Aaron can make it out.
200 people. They didn't put any caps on any of the groups just to see who would show up. Oh, there's where I lost all the time, right there on that entrance. They just went from plus point. So that I was 2/10 up, and I lost by barely 3/10. So if I could have held that together, I probably had it. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that track, and I thought it was pretty cool. And I hope you guys.
Well, I know we're probably going to see Aaron again on one of these lives in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. Like I said, we've had a really good group of people
maybe I'll do
coming
it from the house.
Yeah, do it from your house. That's probably a good idea.
Are you in Arizona now, or are you going back and forth?
He's over at Hasport.
I know that, not this moment. Are you going back and forth through Cali still, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
No offense, but I'm never moving here.
Yeah, you should.
I love San Diego.
You're in San Diego. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
I thought if you're in LA, that's an insult.
That's where we go for vacation. That's where we go for vacation, dude. I live where we used to go all the time, every summer,
I'm fine with going there for vacation. I'm not fine with staying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? I don't know.
It,
All right.
it is a wonderful
Well,
place, and they have some great food.
We'll definitely have you
We
back,
have
Aaron.
deserts.
And we'll definitely, like I said, we'll get Brian on in the next couple streams too. To hopefully he feels better tonight, and we appreciate him organizing, getting you on for us, Aaron, so we can at least talk a little bit about Hasport, since we really hadn't thought of anything else yet tonight. So we were already brained for Hasport. But thanks,
I'm sorry
guys.
I couldn't get you guys some videos.
Oh no, we'll
It's okay. Next time we'll have a lot.
We've got a lot of these to do, so we'll keep queuing up more stuff and make it a little more interesting, and keep trying to get it out there so people can see the cool stuff that some of the local guys are doing out here in Phoenix and like in Canada, I guess technically last event. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and thanks again for joining us, Aaron, and we'll catch you guys
see you
next
at
time.
CRX or NS Expo.
We'll see you.
Yes.
If you want to come down, I'll be down there. I'll be doing the track days tomorrow, and then I'll be at the social, I think, on Friday and Saturday. So.
Yeah, the plan was to go out there. I think today's Tuesday, right?
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday.
It was tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think his friends Clarence is coming into town. Lawrence or Clarence, I can't remember which, but one of them's coming into town. Probably the same guy, but I got his name wrong, I'm sure. But yeah, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay.
All right. Cool.
Have a good night, guys. See you. Bye.
And I remember taking off in first gear, and this particular time the car sounded perfect. Beyond third gear, I really don't have much